Hello, hello, Sat Nam, and welcome. I'm so excited to be having this episode of the Sovereign Society podcast because this has literally been like on my mind and on my heart since April. Since we were all at Sat Nam Fest together in Malibu, and I'm even more excited because it's like a part of me gets to like reactivate the music journalist in me that once was and will always be. And I'm really grateful because I have two incredible artists that it just feels really fresh, as being a Kundalini Yoga teacher for 5 years now and finding music that just like hits the soul and like speaks to me and just resonates on my frequency. I finally found it. Is what it feels like. So I've got Chand Grayson here, and honestly, it's just like it's been so refreshing to have something fresh in the Kundalini music world. And a lot of us, I DJ, like Feather and Dot DJ with me when I teach at festivals, and just having more options and more like soul. This is soul, Kundalini soul music for me. And so I'm really grateful to have these two. I met them at Satnam Fest, like I said, in April. And it was just really refreshing to see more, millennial young people like really answering the call and being this like the next wave really of the Kundalini teachers. And the three of us here are all Kundalini teachers. And so it's just, like I said, it's just really refreshing to be able to see where this is going, and we're getting creeping up closer and closer to this like 2020 crystal vision year. And and I just think that like a lot of us are here answering the call, and I know these two are. And so I'm really excited to be having this conversation with them because they are currently recording and preparing to record their first album, which has literally been like a hallelujah answer to fucking prayers. Because I need new music in my classes, damn it. No, but really, like I'm beyond stoked that these two are following their dharma and answering the call and just really sharing something unique and fresh and just like romantic and really beautiful. Oh yeah, I said it. So thank you to the two of you for being here and for sharing your medicine and again, just answering the call.
Thank you. It's so funny that you say romantic because people often think that we're together as like a romantic couple. And then they like get to talk to me a little bit and they're like, oh, something's not what I thought. But but it is romantic because it's everything is like for us like a romance. Like you think like having passion and romance for the creative purpose and for our community and the practice and to spirit and everything is like kind of this always constantly occurring romance that you're having with something, and we really indulge in that. And I think that that is like when you experience beauty, I think that that's that feeling of God when you're opened up to this like nice like romantic expression and experience. And I think that's what we like to revel in when we are like when we're creating and recording, and that's what we're celebrating really.
Yes. And I agree. And I just think it's like the beauty way in a way as well. And it's just, I just think all of us right now are really answering the call to like dive so deep within and create from that space, from like the bottom of our heart of just like that pure expression, because the world is yearning for so much of that love right now as well. And so, we are in this space where we get to fully embrace who we are. We are in this space where, we understand that each of us are here on a divine mission and each of us have this voice to be shared. And I just feel like there's so much of that activation right now of just speaking and embodying and living our Satnam, and it gives permission. I think so much of our society, it's just like the permission needed You know, I don't know. I'm a projector in human design, so I'm a wait for the invitation kind of girl, and that to me is that invitation for me, you know. And yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to definitely see how this continues to expand and actualize and activate, because Kundalini, I mean, how long have the two of you been practicing Kundalini and seeing how much it's evolved, you know, over the years, right? Like, more and more people are interested, more and more people are understanding the medicine of the mantra, the medicine of the practice, the medicine of what we have within ourselves, that Kundalini life force within us. And there's no more time for playing small. And that's what this practice allows us to activate our wholeness. So I would just love to hear from the two of you, you know, your journey to Kundalini Yoga and how you're seeing it transform your life, because shit, I know it's transformed my life, so like over the years. And around this time 5 years ago, I was in Kundalini teacher training, you know, and just to see, like, this is always like summer's a really good time for me to always like reflect, like, shit, how far I've come, you know. So I would love to hear your journey on how you found this practice and really like what it's led to, you know.
Yeah. Well, I found the practice for the first time in 2013, and it was after kind of like diving into the more like physical side of yoga, so like vinyasa and hatha. And I'm a former competitive tennis player, so it was like I was going from this really physical discipline of like practicing for many hours on the court, so it was like such a quick transition to go into the vinyasa practice. And I had graduated university and I went home to St. Louis to visit my family, and I kept hearing about Kundalini Yoga, and I was just like, I don't know, like, I don't know anything about it. It just like kept coming to me. And I had already signed up for my 200-hour vinyasa training in Costa Rica. And so about a week before I left, did some research and was like, all right, well, there's a Kundalini class just around the corner. I'm going to go in and see what this is all about. And I like read about the teacher, and they're like, and her hair is like past her butt. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Anyways, I went to this first class. She had like 4 gongs, like all out in front of her. And I was like, okay, she had mantra music going. I just kind of like tiptoed in, like wearing my like Lululemon black pants, and was like, I'm not in the right space.
This is not where I parked my car. Yeah.
And I sat down and just like was taking it all in. And there were only like 2 or 3 other people in the class, but the woman who was teaching was so dedicated to the teachings and like really dove into the explanation, and was like, she had like the mantra sheets out and like talked about the tune in and everything. And the moment that I tuned in, I had tears in my eyes. And it was like that first class, it was like this instant homecoming. And so from there, I took as much Kundalini Yoga as I could up until the point where I left for Costa Rica. And then I was in Costa Rica and was like, well, I'm practicing and like learning how to teach vinyasa, but like meanwhile I'm there like doing my spinal flexes, like doing my twists and ego eradicator. And it was so clear to me that in that space, I was already so much more interested in the practice of Kundalini Yoga, and how much quicker I could get into that space of centering myself and like feeling connected, which is really like the whole purpose of, you know, the hour and a half long vinyasa class. It was like, oh, it's only going to take me like maybe 3.5 minutes of doing this crazy breath, and I can find that centeredness that I was looking for the whole time. So then my journey from there, it was like, I actually spent 2 years in Costa Rica, and I ended up working for this retreat center and using mantra and voice in a different setting while still chanting Kundalini Yoga mantras. But I was sitting in a ritual called the Duni every week, and it was 2.5 hours of chanting around a fire, mostly Sanskrit mantras. And it was like this active process of feeding the fire. And it was, I mean, that's really where the access of like really dialing into the codes of the universe, it was that sustained practice of chanting in community, in a group, with like this central point of like, we're all in this fire, like this transformation, and we're like working it together. And that's where I was like, okay, there's definitely something to this sound current. And then flash forward, came back to the States, and then strictly dove into Kundalini Yoga. And thank God, she was my first teacher, Guru Sandesh. She's in St. Louis. She's been holding down the community there for like, I want to say like 20 years or so. And she was teaching like 4 or 5 classes a week. So I would just show up, and I was there, and I just learned and learned and learned. And then was like, all right, I've got to teach. And then I went to the immersion, studied with Satsiri, and was in the Espanola ashram for 28 days. And that was another layer of experience of the practice and being immersed in like the Sikh community and like people who have been in the practice for many, many years. And I mean, my process of relating to Kundalini Yoga has like totally changed over the course of time, of being like super strict with myself and like always having my head covered and all of this. And I think it's so amazing to realize like the relationship with the technology is constantly evolving. And it's like, I'm just right now, I feel like I'm in so much more of a balanced and holistic place with it. And I'm just so grateful to have the tools, and especially have the access to the vibration of sound, because I think that's really, anyone can do it. And it's accessing that point within yourself and that healing vibration of like using your own voice and using it from your heart, and then connecting and sending it out. And
it's higher dimensional living. You know, a lot of people don't realize that sound is like 7th dimension. It's higher dimensional. The sound current, you know, it was, like they say, it was the word, you know, and that sound is everything. It carries the frequency, it carries intention, it carries that essence of what we will then experience.
Yeah. I love that on the website it said that she had hair down to her butt. I think that's really
amazing.
You'll never see her hair. It's always in a turban, but she has hair down to her butt. I was like,
so okay. Like, come to class.
Yeah. Come on down. Amazing. And Grayson, I would love to hear how you found the practice too.
Yeah, for me I was definitely in I started out with physical asana when I moved to Los Angeles in 2014. So I was doing, a lot of like Bikram, Vinyasa. And when I would get to those points, and then I was trying to like sit in my room and meditate, because that's what I thought you did when you meditated, was just sit in silence. And that, you know, that is a way to do it, but I was having a lot of difficulty getting there, as most people do. And so I was really into really intense physical asana that I got in the Vinyasa class. And there were these moments and pockets of time through the transitions where I felt my mind completely still, and I was just fully in my body and in my breath. And I was going so often that it built up where I was experiencing that most of the class. But then there was something about like the music that they'd be playing or things that the teacher would say that just felt like there was no preservation or recognizing that energy. It was like a fitness thing. But I was experiencing something way more metaphysical and super beautiful. And then I had a friend recommend to me in 2016. So I've only been doing it for about 3 years. 2016, he recommended that I should go to Golden Bridge in Santa Monica. And I was in a super flexible, like I'll try anything. Like I didn't really have a lot of responsibilities, and I was just like searching. And I remember, same as Jai Chand, it was like the first time I walked in, I was wearing my black tank top with my black shorts. I was looking at all the pictures of like the deities and the gurus, and looking at a picture of Guru Nanak and being like, this guy is like staring deeply into me right now. Like he's seeing me. And I was just so fixed on this portrait of Guru Nanak. And I remember we tuned in for the first time, and same as like, I was like, whoa, I get to use my voice and like resonate. Like that's so that's so cool. I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm into it. And then I remember just the immediate feeling of openness and that drop deeply into meditation, and immediately knowing that it was the first. It was the first of many. And after the class, the teacher, Dave, she came up to me and she was like, I'm allowed to offer a scholarship to the teacher training happening this fall to one person. And I feel like I just need to let you know about that.
Oh my
And
God, that's amazing.
I know. And it was kind of aligning perfectly because I did it for about a week and a half, every day for a week and a half. And then I went and I lived in Sweden for about 3 months, and the teacher training was starting like 2 days after I got back. So it was totally divinely orchestrated that this was happening. And yeah, I did the longer teacher training. I did mine over the course of 6 months, and that was a really crazy time where, um, you know, lost the house that I was living in, relationships ended, got like 2 jobs, lost both of them. I met this one here, I met Jai Chand, and just like it just completely rattled my life in like the best possible way. And it really still has. I'm so grateful for the practice and that first experience because, I wouldn't be here without it. I wouldn't be doing all of these amazing things and feel so at home in my community if it wasn't for this practice. And so even if, I go, several days or a week or however long without doing a physical practice, I still have so much gratitude for it and the way that it has shaped my life. And, that activation, that Kundalini rising, like really experiencing that and knowing what that is and being able to say like that has happened to me, that is happening to me. And I'm so grateful to be able to go to be on this path. And especially with like cool people that I love, like you guys, it's just like so awesome for us to be able to just be here and talk about it. Like that just is so cool to me. Like,
Yes,
yeah.
I know. I had like the best time at Satnam Fest with you guys, and it was just like, it was a last minute jump on. I was like, I've been before, and it used to be literally across the street from my house, and then they moved it to Malibu, which was a godsend because it wasn't hot as hell. And it was just like all the fairies flying around. Remember that? Just walking and seeing like all these like fairies, like, oh my God, it was so magical. Especially right at like so close after the fires in Malibu too. I just think like we were called to really help bring in the Satanama, that rebirth of the space, and just because I remember I was eating lunch. I think I was with like Icona and Satsiri and Tommy Ronson, and we were just looking, and we looked over to the left, and you see on the hill on the left, all the trees are burnt, and then you see the hill on the right, all the trees were green, and it was just like such a crazy contrast, to see like this canyon and where we were and the rebirth that was happening, that was at the space that we were all cultivating together as well. And I'm sure you will, based off of what you just said, like you feel, I know I do, like Kundalini helped bring my rebirth in a very strong way. I found the practice from a Pinterest quiz years ago. It was like, which yoga practice is right for you? And I was like, oh, I guess I like to sing. And then I was going to do 1,000-hour yoga therapy certification training. And then the studio in Encinitas that I was going to do it at, it was the first time they were offering Kundalini Yoga teacher training. And I jumped on it without ever taking a class before, just because I had this like intuitive knowing, like, I did this quiz and it told me like, it sounds familiar. And I had a Kundalini activation. I don't know. Did you guys have Kundalini activations before the practice? Because I had mine in 2012, around like this time 7 years ago, without even knowing what it was, and I would just, what would you say with that? Like, would you say, knowing what you know now, do you feel as though before you started doing the Kundalini yoga that you had a Kundalini activation?
Yeah, I had mine around March or April 2013. And it was like you need to completely switch your life around type of activation. And it started with like receiving messages that I couldn't avoid, and then it turned into basically very nonchalantly seeing God in everything that I was looking at, and like it was like everything that I was experiencing, it was like total unity. And I didn't grow up in a religious family, so it was like to feel that experience of God in everything and feel that unity. It was, I mean, it was full blown, like very, very intense at a certain point, and did look like I may have gone off the rocker a little bit at a certain point, and I did have to
Been
eventually
there.
come down to earth. And which is like part of the healing for me, is like knowing that I can be in that space of like being completely out there and like totally gone. It's like the Kundalini practice is like, it gives me that dose of it, but in a much more controlled and grounded way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just think like that's just the invitation for all of us to really like embody why we're here, and who we're here to, what we're here to do. And there's just this whole like it's just, yeah, the activation. It's just like, we came here when we did. We incarnated here when we did. Like the blueprint that we carry is here with us. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. It's yeah, I mean, I think mine was way more gradual. I think like when I first moved to Los Angeles and I was having these like really spiritual experiences, they were because I was like doing a lot of drugs.
Mhm.
And that was
Been
like,
there.
yeah, it was so ungrounded. It was like I didn't know how to connect the two. I didn't know what I I knew what was real, like physically. I thought,
Mhm.
you know what I mean. But that completely turned my life upside down. I had this really fixed idea of what my life was going to be, and then I started experiencing these higher dimensions and these kind of alternate realities and this different way of approaching and seeing the world around me. And I didn't know what I was overwhelmed by it so much, and I was scared of it, and it kind of brought me into I don't know if it brought me into a depression or if the depression kind of arose and was like more like
Purging
leaving me.
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah, and so I think you can maybe have two different experiences. I think those are both valid, but I know that for me it was super rough, and I like had to move back home and reground myself and really evaluate what my life was and what I wanted to do, and make some really clear goals. And I had some really beautiful grounding experiences in yoga, and so the Kundalini, that just, it tied everything together, because we really are this like conduit, and what it's doing is it's grounding us. It's like this pulling motion. You pull up, just like you're really straightening your spine and you're lifting that energy up, and you're doing that mula bandha, and you're lifting and you're elongating, but then you're still like grounding yourself deep into the earth. So you're acting as this tree, it's not like it's not like you're just completely blasting off. Some people have that experience, and but I know for me it was like a really grounding experience within my voice and my body, and still having this really beautiful access to the ethers and higher dimensions.
Yeah. And I mean, my journey was very similar to yours, Grayson, in that way of like, I remember the first time I found God, like really, other than like, I was in a very strong Catholic family growing up, super Italian. And I had a deeper connection with God. I feel like I had first my Kundalini activations working with MDMA and being at a festival gathering, and oh my God, this is God. Like I'm finally connecting with God after 23 years of like wanting this connection. Problem was there was that abuse of of drugs and MDMA and all these things, and I had to hit a rock bottom. And I think when I had my Kundalini activation for the first time, little did I know 2 months later would I be struck by lightning and have to like really go through this process of
Oh,
go navigating through this again, and the polarity of it. And it's interesting because, you know, from the past and the history that's brought me to Kundalini Yoga and this practice, it's like I can have a deeper compassion when I run into people or I see people that may be abusing medicines or drugs, and having these Kundalini activations that aren't grounded, but still be able to hold that container and, you know, let them know that they're not alone. And I think that's part of like my purpose in our community, you know. Like I remember when I was at Satnam Fest, I was telling Guru Singh, oh no, not Guru Singh, I was telling Guru Mir, who was one of my teachers in teacher training, that you know, I'm the psychedelic Kundalini yogi. Like I definitely see myself as the one that's there to hold that conduit. And I mean, you two perform a lot at like festivals that are sober based, but like I'm teaching at festivals that aren't. And it's a different kind of container that I have to hold and carry within myself to make sure that my students are safe, because the Kundalini energy is so strong. And if you're not ready for it, it can rock you to the fucking core. And I know that was my experience, you know, and it was a lot of healing that I had to navigate through and strengthen my aura. And, you know, a lot of people don't understand that your aura, you know, all that trauma, there's holes in it, and the density of the world comes in and drains you. So, I mean, I'm interested to hear from you two, like what are you seeing, you know, because like you're teaching at these spaces, like I said, like Satnam Fest and things like that, but in the real world, or the default world we burners call it, like what do you see as like that you're navigating through as this conduit that is, you know, being the sacred vessel and really being, you know, doing your dharma of holding that container and helping people heal through your voice, through your music? Like what are you seeing happening right now?
I know, so you talked about that you're a projector within human design, and I'm a reflector, and I know that I feel so much, and I'm really, I understand that a lot of, and all of, basically according to human design, what I feel is not mine. So I know that when I'm in spaces and I feel any type of way, you know, I can really tune into the energy of the space. And what I notice is a lot of people aren't aware of how to receive, especially aren't aware how to receive compassion and love from perhaps a total stranger. And so what I experience is a lot of walls, a lot of people kind of just putting a wall over themselves, protecting themselves, and a lot of like skepticism, which can be healthy, definitely, but I'm feeling a lot of distrust personally from, and for me, what that means is just to respect people's boundaries and respect people, but always coming across and always applying compassion is a really, really big thing for me, no matter where someone is in their life, and really actually practicing empathy and compassion towards people. And I think that's all people want. And people don't necessarily know that they're receiving it when they receive it. But how many times have you just deeply appreciated like someone being really kind to you, or someone being that you didn't know, someone being super compassionate to you and just seeing you? You know, I remember before I had any sort of spiritual awakening, those moments were always so strange for me, when someone was just like willingly being super nice and compassionate towards me, and how I didn't necessarily trust it. So I feel now that I'm being called to be more compassionate and present with people than I ever have been.
Okay, so with that, this is where, and now perfect segue into what we were talking about back at Satnam Fest about the intersectionality and bringing in the diversity. You know, I think like for people that may come into our community or whatever, they're like, oh my God, everyone's wearing white. Oh my God, everyone's wearing turbans. Oh my God, everyone is white. Like majority of people are white. And it's a practice that, you know, there's a lot of money in there, and there's a lot of like that financial abundance, and being able to allow this practice to be available, you know, to people that that need it, or allowing groups of people to be seen or recognized and honored. What do you feel like? I don't know. It's really fascinating to me just watching and being in that observer of, you know, how do we include more LGBTQ? How do we bring in more people of color? Like how do we blend this in so it's not just like this, like, I don't say like white supremacist path, but like, it's just like, it's mostly white people that, you know, going into this practice, because these people that are in these diverse communities, there's so much healing that needs to be had in those communities, you know, like we're seeing more conversations about reparations, you know, and we're seeing these more conversations on non-binary and all these things. Like, how do we start to really bring these groups and bring the practices into the groups so that we can all rise up together and not have this teeter-tottered, imbalanced kind of rising, you know, as a collective, as the golden era?
Yeah. I think first of all, there has to be people who want it, you know, like people have to want to be able to see the diversity and have to be willing to do the work in order to make it happen. And that is doing whatever sort of outreach that you can possibly do to those communities. And I think acknowledging that there is a problem with diversity within the community, that's a really great first step. And I know that there's a lot of people, I mean, I know Krishna Kaur, she's doing a lot of beautiful things with Yoga for Youth. And she's going to a lot of, I mean, mostly minority people, you know, and young youth settings. And so I really do, I know that within the next 10, 15 years, we're going to be seeing a way more within the community, a lot of diversity. I'm seeing some outreach happening, but in terms of accessibility, I don't know if it's there. I don't know if accessibility within the Kundalini Yoga community is there yet. I don't know. I don't feel like it totally is. A lot of things are very expensive. They don't totally seem approachable because you have a white person wearing all white with a turban on their head. And just for me, that I don't like,
cultural appropriation, like people can have that feeling, definitely.
Totally, yeah. And I know I did. And so I feel like it has to be accessible for people. And I'm pretty sure I know a great way for that to happen is for us to be authentic to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so for me, when I don't feel like wearing a turban, I'm not going to wear one. If I don't feel like wearing all white, I'm not going to wear all white. Like, I'm just not going to do it. When I go to these festivals, I don't wear all white because it doesn't feel authentic to me, and I'm able to gauge that, and I'm able, like, I know, okay, this does not align with me. I see the older generation doing this, still having respect for that, and still honoring them for that being their authentic expression right now as themselves, but then also honoring myself for what my authentic expression is.
So that we can break that dogma, like that this is what it needs to be, right? And I think that was the biggest awakening I had at Satnam Fest, was really standing in my truth and being like, I'm not complying to the dogmas of anything anymore. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that I think the more, like you said, the more that we are in that embodiment of like, this is my non-negotiable, that, you know, of not doing that, it gives permission for others to feel safe to say that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why we feel like it's so important for us to really be super out there within our community and really present. We were talking at Satnam Fest with two of our friends. You know, it's really important for us to show this community and to show the older generation that we are committed. You know, we are committed to this path. And I think that's something that they want to see and that they just want to know, because ultimately one day they're going to have to hand it over. You
Yeah.
know, like, the power has to transfer to the next generation, for the teachings to be continued, you know, but there has to be harmony within that, and trust within that, and communication. So,
So
and
that's
with
where
that,
the inclusivity really needs to really
mhm,
show, because our generation, we are a lot more inclusive as a greater picture than the older generations, you know. Yes, maybe in our community they can be more inclusive, but when you look at the bigger scope of that generation, there's still a lot of racism, there's still a lot of prejudice, there's still a lot, you know, and that is still, there's an awareness that we have of that, you know. And so how are we willing to choose differently? How are we going to rise up and say, we see you and we know what's actually real with a capital R, you know, and what is truth with a capital T?
yeah, for me, it really just goes back to making sure that there is like really clear communication, and really listening to them as to what they want, and really like, honoring that, and then they need to honor it within us as well.
Trust us.
Yeah.
You know, and I think so much of our generation, they doubt us. Like, oh, you overprivileged, like, millennials. It's like, we're fucking cleaning up your generation's mess. Like,
Yeah.
you know
We
what
have
I
to live in
mean?
this world. Yeah, yeah. We're gonna be in the
We're
long
the
term.
ones that are cleaning shit up, you know, and doing our best here. And I definitely agree with you on that. I mean, I think that's part of my dharma as at teaching at these festivals that aren't necessarily yoga festivals, you know. Like, I taught a class at a festival like the week after Satnam Fest. That was my intention. I was like, I'm going to Satnam Fest to fill up my cup, because I know I'm going to be teaching a class where people are going to be on different medicines. I know, like, they're going to be coming in, and a lot of these other teachers don't know how to handle it because they have chose the path, that the more the pure path, which is great. That's their choice. I'm someone, like I said, the psychedelic Kundalini yogi, where I expand and I explore these other ways of consciousness and higher dimensions, but I can hold that container that maybe someone else couldn't, that may be overwhelming for them, you know. And with the class that I taught, it was called Releasing Your Shit, and I made it, you know, and I had 60 people show up at a festival that before I would have maybe like 6 if I were lucky on that Saturday. And I had 60 people show up. Most of them were men, and I had a ton of people of color there. And this one man came up to me and he told me how his dad's incarcerated, and you know, he's been on the spiritual path now for 3 years, and he's choosing to be that sacred disruptor, to not have him be the next generation that's going to be incarcerated, you know. And that's what I feel like our generation is here. Like, we're the most intelligent generation there's been, you know, that we've experienced on this planet. And so I definitely do feel like we are able to have that like hawk perspective more so of what's happening. And of course there's a disruption that's going on to what's been, but what's been is no longer working.
It can't. We're in a new age. Like vibrationally, it can't work. Like, we have to adapt to the new system, to the Aquarian Age. That's the whole point. And that's what Yogi Bhajan was preparing for us. But he had to be able to access them in the way that they knew, right? So
Yeah.
he had to go through this Piscean way to be able to get them to listen to him. And then a lot of them don't let go of that. You know, they talk about the Aquarian Age, but I don't know, you know, if they really know what it is. I don't know if I totally know what it is. You know, we're
It's
still
still
at
so fresh.
yeah, it's still so fresh, you know. And the one thing about the Aquarian Age that keeps coming up to me is, in the Aquarian Age, there are no secrets. Yogi Bhajan said, in the Aquarian Age, there are no secrets. And so that's why, like, it just makes total sense to me that so much shit is being swept out under the rug, and so many people are like experiencing so much trauma, and like so many things are being brought to light, because there can't, you know, it's like it all has to happen in order for this age to continue.
Well, that's like what's going on with the border right now, you know.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, I was on a 4-month social media break, and I went back on because no one else was talking about it, that I was like, I got to talk. How, this security company, a call security, that was started by Yogi Bhajan. And then there's stories that went and did their own path, but they're one of the contractors that are doing the freaking border, which is so against the principles of the Aquarian Age. And so one of my girlfriends, Jessica from Mantras and Miracles, she's really being vocal about it, and she's talking about it. I talked about it. Like, again, no secrets. Like, we're being like, this is bullshit. How can you be saying that you're about community and all these things, but there's this company, just because of profits, that is completely unaligned with the ethos that was the root of the company. And so, having more of these conversations with Kundalini yogis, about what's going on and how we can use our voice to like educate and speak up. Like, that's what this platform is for me. Sovereign Society is like, I want to have this platform where people, I'm here to shake shit up. Like, I'm not a surface level bitch. I've never have been, like, I'm about like shaking shit up to the core so that we can really have real conversations about what's going on, to educate and then do something about it. Right. Like, we can talk, but there's the action that needs to be done too.
Yeah.
And having that conversation in the community, like, the alignment of what you're saying, walking the talk, is critical in this time, in this day and age, which is bringing, again, the intersectionality, where people are coming into the community being who they are. Like you said, if I don't want to wear like a turban, I'm not, and that's kind of like, it's kind of a disruption and a rebellion that's kind of happening, where it's like, there is the ethos and the trust that we still have. And there's also the awareness of like, this is who I am.
For sure. And I think all of the teachings they're in support of authentic expression of self and honoring each and every single person as a being of light and love. We are all a part of this. We are all one, but then within any human being, you're going to find ego, and there's going to be, possible judgment. So I think I love the respecting your elders, I understand that so much. But there's a lot of old people that I just don't respect. But there's a lot of really
the respect
beautiful...
can come from seeing that they are acting the way that they are. You're respecting their inner child. We don't have to respect all their actions that they do, because a lot of times the actions come from that trauma, or those actions come from the unawareness and the unconscious, rather than staying true. And I think that's another reason why this practice is really coming up strong right now, is because like, we need more people in their dharma, in their satnam, in their truth. And that's why we came here when we did.
Yeah. We took a really beautiful class at Satnam Fest with, can't remember, it was it was an older couple.
Dr. Shamrang.
Yeah, Dr. Shamrang and his wife. And she was talking about, and it was honestly something that I wouldn't have expected to hear someone talk about from, the older generation who's been doing this for 30, 40 years. She was saying that about 20 years into her practice or so, she realized that she had completely abandoned who she was before she began this practice and adopted this spiritual name and started really diving into the teachings and following Yogi Bhajan. And she realized that she couldn't ignore it anymore, and that she had to identify and really acknowledge who she was before that, and really kind of unite the two. And it was a really beautiful experience, because I'm glad that I'm hearing that now, kind of in the really, like the early stages, compared to someone doing this for 40 years, hearing that, because I have personally gone through, going by my birth name, then adopting my spiritual name, Tegion, and solely going by that and only identifying as that, as a means to be able to say, okay, Grayson's gone now. Like, we don't need to look at him anymore. He's gone. Like, I'm now Teggy on Kundalini Yoga teacher, you know? And it was this really it was spiritual bypassing at its finest.
Mm.
But to be able to witness someone in the older generation saying that they had experienced that too, and it was really powerful.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I would love to hear too, because I've heard, Jai Chen, that that's how you found your voice too, was through Kundalini Yoga. And, you know, and you coming into your voice, you know, through this practice and sharing that, and now allowing your naad, your sound current to, you know, be in people's meditations, you like guiding through, you know, and again, being in that romantic relationship to the ethers and the soul of the person that's listening, and creating this, both of you creating this, like this beautiful, like, marriage relationship, like conglomerate thing that is, I don't even know how to describe it. I don't know. I just feel so good anytime, like, I'm in my house and I'm listening to your music, like, almost every day. But I would love to hear too, like, you finding your voice and adopting your spiritual name and really feeling in this space of who you are and what you're here to share and serve.
Yeah. Wow. I think when it was so funny receiving that spiritual name. I was just about to head to the immersion in New Mexico, and I got it, and I was like, okay, that's it. Like, bye, goodbye, Kat. Like, it was nice knowing you. Thank you for the first, like, 20, I don't know how many years, 20 something years of my life. And I mean, I completely avoided and wiped out, like, anything that I was previously. And I tried to, like, go as deeply into the teachings, like not shaving my legs, like always being, like, very modestly covered. And I'm coming from a past of, like, festival girl, like partying, like crazy high heels, like full makeup, like all of that. So it was like, I went from one side of the spectrum to the other, and I'm sure, like, the outsiders looking in were like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh yeah.
And so, but I did it, and I'm clearly an extremist. I have to go, like, all the way in to, like, figure things out. And I did it, and then, like, gradually, like, have been stepping back, and, like, I mean, it's like finding the balance with it. But it is through the vibration and the sound current. It was like, as soon as I found the practice, I knew that it was the mantra, and, like, the Aquarian sadhana, like, every single day in New Mexico, I was in Aquarian sadhana, and I stayed after for Gurdwara just so I could chant. And it was like, it was such a connection and cleansing. It was like I was, like, clearing through so much shit that I had in my heart through the sound current, and being able to connect and express it, and express that, like, longing that I had to merge again with the infinite. And it was like, the sound current was that access point to be like, I know you're there, and, like, I know you're always with me, and, like, it's through this point that I can, like, feel some sense of, like, oh, like, here it is again, like, here I am again. But it's like finding myself, and I feel like I'm still finding my voice. It's much easier for me to express through music rather than through words. So the collaboration with Grayson has been so amazing, because we're both, it is so soulful. It's like the connection between us, and then the connection to the infinite through that, I feel like, is what is coming through. It's like, we're both in this space of longing and yearning, and it's like, ooey gooey hard.
It's a party.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it's always got to be fun. If it's not fun, there's no point.
Yeah, totally. I love that.
it really is like a celebration of, because I mean, we met in a Kundalini yoga class. Like that's when we met, and it was, and I mean, frankly and honestly, it was after like a really huge, like a really like really sad point in my life, and the only thing that I could think of to get me out of it was to go to a Kundalini class, and this was in the middle of my teacher training, and I remember, yeah, like having just like a really, really dark period over several days. And I knew the only thing to get me out of it was going to my favorite class. And I went, and someone introduced the two of us, and I wasn't able physically to speak at the time, just because I had this like mouth injury. But I knew the second that we looked at each other that there was this beautiful connection. And I remember being so like in my shit and so upset and in like the depths of like some of the darkest times I've ever been in. And I remember I looked over at you, and our friend introduced us, and she was like, you need to meet Jai Chand. And I looked over, and I just was like talking through this like gauzed mouth. And the way that she looked at me, I remember immediately feeling like I was okay to be there, and that it was like that connection to me was just like the door opening slightly to a different room where I was safe, and I knew that I was safe. And that's like the foundation of it all, really. It's been, and just we're just continuing that, and we're going through these different levels. And when we have these beautiful moments when we're rehearsing and creating like we have been for the last week, just those moments where we just get lost, and the identity of us, they go away. Like it's not our story and Grayson and Jai Chand and all that. It goes away because we merge through the sound to the infinite, and to be able to experience that together, knowing that we created that together, we created that pathway for ourselves together. That's just what we love to do. And it started out just doing it for us, and I think just because we love doing it, it'll always be something for us. But the fact that we get to share it, and we get to put it out, and we get to help other people experience that, it's just such a gift and such a blessing, and it's a really beautiful way to be able to give back.
So what was it that within the two of you that was like, okay, we need to collaborate and make music together? Like, what was that initiation or that invitation that was like, the time is now, like, let's stop fucking around, let's get real, like the time is now, like let's start sharing our medicine?
Do you think it was in New York, like when we were, because we had been putting out videos ever since we met. We like put out little stuff of us singing together, because when our first like time hanging out together was on our way to Satnam Fest, Joshua Tree, and I was giving her a ride, and we were sitting in the back of, she was sitting in the back of my car, and we were listening to Jai Jagdish. It's so funny because now she's like a great friend of ours, but we were like listening to her and singing along, and I was like, Jai Jagdish is my favorite. And then Jai Chand was like, yeah, me too. And then we both were like singing the whole time together. And I think we knew, and I remember being like, you have a good voice. and
I was like, you too.
I know. And then it was kind of, and then once we got back to LA, when we got back to LA, we started doing at a local studio, kind of our like initiation into friendship was doing 40 days of long Ekon cars together.
Yeah, wow.
The 2.5 hours of long
40 days of that? Kudos.
Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, I was unconscious for most of it. Don't get me wrong. Like I wasn't getting up the whole time. Like that's, this one was. But I remember that just being like a crazy initiation into our friendship, and us like really experiencing the sound current together. That's really the foundation of our friendship. And our collaborating is this like sound current that we just love to create together. It's
been a gradual process though. We started like leading sadhana a little bit here and there, and then we went to winter solstice, and that's when actually Gobini Mukande dropped in. We were sitting at our friend's booth in the bazaar, and Grayson just starts finger plucking on his little ukulele in this crowded building right before the Yogi Tea Cafe.
Yeah, right before the little talent show that they have there.
And then the melody jumped in, and we're like, we should do that. We had a time slot, and we're like, all right, we're going to perform this. And so I think like it was this like snowballing effect of like, oh, and this is who we want to play with, our dear friend who plays incredible percussion, Jai Jot, and like he was there, and it's just been this beautiful cyclone. And when we were in New York, I was like, we need to make the album. We need to make the album. And you're like, all it takes is one song, like one seed. And that's what it feels like is Gobini Mukande. Like we didn't need to like force anything and be like, oh, here's this whole album. It was like, here's this song like literally recorded in 12 hours one day in our friend Tripp's apartment, his like sweet little recording studio. And we just spent one day, recorded it, and voila.
Yeah. And it's so funny because the kind of start of that, I remember talking to, because I went to spend time with Jai Jagdish in Virginia after her and I got, close, we became friends, and she asked me to photograph the cover for her upcoming album. And so I was telling her all about how, Jai Chand, like we want to record an album. We have so many songs that we're sitting on. We have so much that we want to do. And she said, if you get something recorded by March, so this was December of last year. She said, if you get something recorded by March, like, well, I will like promote it for you. Like I'll talk about it. And that was a huge, like, we just needed, I think, someone, well, it helped.
It's the Aquarian Age. It's community.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this alone anymore.
Right. Yeah. It helped having someone be like, hey, if you are really serious about it, like I'll do X, Y, Z. And so that was huge for us. And so the time came, and we just decided to do it. I remember I was looking at a penny. It came from looking at a penny that I was like, it's just one. Like this penny symbolizes so much. This penny is the start of $1, of $10, of $1 million, of an entire empire. What this penny symbolizes is just a seed.
That's so beautiful, Grayson.
And so
that makes me emotional.
so it's all around us, right? It's all around us. Like it's always there. Like we can tap into that infinite, that infinity.
So beautiful.
I remember I was looking at a penny and I was like, it's just one. And I looked at her and I was like, we just have to record one single, and that's it. And the community again came and supported us, and it's just wild how it's kind of rolled out. But it feels like, of course.
The community is craving it though too. Like I said, like it's just a breath of fresh air, like finding music that is at a frequency that feels natural, that I would naturally incline to listen to, and there's been so much of like the older songs and the older teachers, which are still so beautiful, of course, something fresh, to keep the substance going. And it's a really beautiful invitation for others who may already be like, everyone's wearing white, they're all wearing turbans, like what am I diving into? And just let the music speak, like letting the music speak in a way that entices them to dive in deeper. And we need more of that in the world right now, of these people like with the permission to go in a little deeper. So then now you're in this process of having this Kickstarter where you're ready to create the album with Ram Dass, which is amazing. And I would love to hear what you're all feeling with that. And I saw before we jumped on that you're about 1,000 plus over now from when we record right now, and your goal is 5,555. And I would love to hear just like what are you feeling that like with this whole process and how it's unfolding.
It's been beautiful. like I said, we have a lot, and we've had a lot of like content. I mean, if you go into any one of our voice memos on our phones, it's just like constant, like this melody for this mantra and this song and this, that. So we have a lot that we're sitting on that we're just kind of been compiling together. But, you know, we have these amazing musicians who we really want to be a part of the recording process. And we're so grateful to be able to have Ram Dass on board, and thankful, you know, for the kindness of our family, you know, for being huge supports in that as well. And really what this GoFundMe is for is really so that we can make sure that like the people who are working on this are they are well respected in the way that for like the work that they do, the amount of work that they're going to be doing for days, you know, we want to make sure that they're well taken care of, because energetically, you know, that's just it's just what needs to happen going into the album. So we have these musicians who we love and we respect so much, and we got to get them there and we got to pay them. And right now we are at a place where we look to our community and we ask for help and we ask for assistance.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, to be able, and that's why we're so grateful for you, you know, to be able to keep supporting one another, you know, like for us to we'll keep showing up regardless. But to be able to keep the evolution of it going and it moving, and to see this to its fullest potential, you know.
The next level, just keep taking it to the next level too.
Yeah, that's what we're super excited about. And the process has been so much fun.
Yeah, and it's not just mantra, it's kind of a more holistic expression of,
it's a little,
what has been coming through.
Yeah, it's kind of eclectic is what I like to call
it. Amazing.
Definitely
but it's authentic to you.
Exactly, that's all it is. Yeah, it's authentic to us. I mean, she sent me these lyrics she texted them to me, and immediately this melody came in that is just like it's a full-on pop song. Like it's full-on like dance pop song, just like yumminess. And that's like, you know, it's like things that we listened to when we were growing up. And I think a lot of younger people will be able to relate to it for sure. Through this like cool delivery of it being like not mantra, but also like kind of, mantra is just this like a vibration within the mind, you know? So anything is a mantra. We heard today, we're constantly saying mantras to ourselves, always. The subconscious mind is constantly talking to itself and telling our mind things. And what mantra does is, and these really high vibrational mantras, is it goes through and it permeates all of that, cuts it like a knife, and just infiltrates this beautiful higher dimension within our subconscious. But we have some of that, and then we have some like really beautiful songs in English, and we're just it's us.
It's a full circle whole experience.
Yeah,
that is also very inviting, you know, to someone of like, maybe they find one of those and then they're so mesmerized and by the naad there that they start learning and activating more of the sacred sound current through the mantra and want to learn more. I mean, I have my youngest listener, one of my youngest listeners on my podcast, she's a little 8th grader, and she's teaching her mom about Kundalini and stuff that she's learning, you know, and like, it's so really cool. Sweet, you know. And I just think that this generation below us, like, they're from a whole different millennia, and they require different frequencies to sustain themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I just feel it's not going anywhere. If anything, it's going to continue to expand, is what I'm feeling.
Yeah, and I feel like that's really part of our mission is, yeah, we've been performing at yoga festivals and yoga classes and all of this, but the big mission is to be delivering the sound current to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to access it. So not waiting for people to come to a Kundalini yoga class, but being on a stage and having people listen to the sound current and having a full experience. You know, in a festival arena where they're like, oh my gosh, like this, it's the sound, and like just realizing the potency of the sound and how much of an impact it can have on you. It's like my first transcendental experiences were at festivals and through the use of drugs, but with the sound current, it's like you can access that same place without taking anything. And I think
Totally.
just getting into those arenas, like just like you're teaching in these spaces, and it's the music, I feel, is that first draw. It's like they hear it and it's like, okay, I'm feeling different. If they're turned off by like the turban or like the weirdness of the practice, they could listen to the mantra and have an effect, and then they can start chanting it and then have another effect. It's like just meeting people where they're at. And I think music is that universal language that everyone can connect to.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yes. And that's why it was really important that I wanted to have this conversation with you all, you know, because I started this path, like my entrepreneurial path, as a music journalist and interviewing DJs at festivals and gatherings. And now like I said, I teach at these spaces, and my whole mission is just to be that sacred vessel for people to have that transformation and to see them, like you said, where they are, you know, because we're all in different parts and we're all just here to help walk each other home in that way. And I'm so excited to see and to continue to witness like your journey and the path and the impact your naad is making in the collective, and how, you know, it helps people feel good and helps people like want to heal themselves and wants to help people expand their consciousness and their awareness, and the most important thing, and how they can best serve, you know, as their full embodied self. And so to wrap it up, I just want to ask a few quick lightning round questions. But what does sovereignty mean to you?
Ooh, I mean, fully, it's like this, like absolute, pure, authentic experience. And I think recognizing the sovereignty in others is a huge part of that as well. It's like just fully honoring and recognizing your true self within your connection to whoever you pray to, whoever you look at, you know, whoever your community. It's that relationship, that authentic relationship that you have to the thing that makes you keep falling in love with yourself.
I love that. What would you say to younger Kat, and what would you say to younger Grayson?
Jeez, take a fucking chill pill. Just calm down. Like, just like give them a big stinking hug, and just say like it is so okay if people judge you, and if you like, you know, like it's everything that anyone thinks about you has nothing to do with you and everything to do with themselves. You know, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, everything is okay.
Yeah, similar message of like, don't take everything so personally. Stop comparing yourself to other people, and just like know that you are so deeply loved just as you are. You don't have to change a thing. Like, do not change at all.
I love that. What would you say would be a really strong animal totem that's coming through lately for you too, that has been sending messages and guiding you?
Hawk, constant.
Yeah, we keep seeing that. Especially out here, we saw so much. I saw a lot at Satnam Fest. Like, going over the there was so many of them going over the tent, the tent where all the performers were, and all like the big classes. There was a lot of hawk
Medicine.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of bees out here too. Like,
abundance.
Yeah, we were just laying out in the sun for a few minutes. And I remember just being like, just looking at the flowers, and there were just so many, this interconnectivity of everything. And it was just this constant
vibration.
Yeah, of like pollination here, go over here, cross, communicate this way. And it was awesome.
Amazing. Okay, so 3 years from now, how do you see your music impacting the collective, the community, the world at large?
I mean, we already have like our next 2 projects, like kind of not in the works, but they're kind of in the ethers, and we're collecting ideas. With 2 of our really close friends, we want to produce like a dance,
Electronic
yeah, like
mantra album.
electronic mantra,
Hell
and like just
yeah.
really,
Oh, thank
just
you. That was something to fucking work with.
yeah, right. Just but yeah, and just like think like we just really want to have fun with it. So, I definitely see us more seeing us continuing within festivals and expanding within our community, and we're working on doing some retreats and things where we can be together and have people join the 2 of us, and doing that and having a space where we can do that, and yeah, just like keep performing and keep singing. Really, that's it. Just keep singing.
I'm
And
gonna say,
go ahead.
I'm gonna use words to express so that it's actually coming in. But
Yeah, let's call this in.
festivals other than yoga festivals. I want this
Yeah.
music to.
Let's do it.
Huge.
We can make that happen. We got
Yes.
this. Not. And so it is, and it is so. Like, let's do this.
Yeah.
That was the next thing I was gonna say. Is like, do you see like more like, because you have this history, of festivals? Do you see more people in that community open to continue to expand?
100%.
Absolutely. I think it's funny. It's like the medicine they're actually looking for. It's like it's the music that will take you to that place. And like, even if people are on drugs, like, great, that's where they're at. Everyone's gonna have an experience listening to that, and giving people the invitation to access their own voice as well, I think is so healing. It's just like opening up that space to create the collective sound, which is so much bigger than just like him and I on stage singing. It's like, here, like, this is for you. Like, let's do this together.
Yeah, and really working with people who are gonna help expand that. Working with different artists, like visual artists, DJs. Getting like the full spectrum of it all. So it's not. Yeah, some people will enjoy. Like,
I'm like all giddy over here, freaking out. I whatever I can do to help make that dream a fucking reality. I'm here. That's my arena for sure.
Yeah, but it's like just like some people will and we love to do that, the intimate settings, sitting at the harmonium with a guitarist and an easy pose and chanting that way. Like, that's beautiful. Like, the kirtan of it is amazing, but like, why stop there?
Spectrum. That's the full spectrum of who you are.
Yeah, let's give people like a crazy cool visual experience while they're in the naad.
My gears in my head right now are like, I'm seeing so much shit right now. Like, yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, if there's one last thing you want to share with them about, like, someone who may be, on the path, or someone that, where you've once been to where you are now, what words of encouragement or inspiration would you want to share with someone who's really, really yearning for that remembrance that, that they're really working towards of who they are?
I would say, like, step into that thing that's kind of making you uncomfortable, that you don't want to do, but is going to really help you. Whether it's talking to that person, going to that event, taking that class, listening to this thing, like, really start to move into that direction of, it's uncomfortable, but in a way that it's new and you maybe don't understand it. And starting to have like just that curiosity and really contemplating it, and not being super intense and hard on yourself about anything, but genuinely leaning into curiosity and to a little bit of uncomfortableness, so that you can help like rediscover yourself through a different lens. Like, allow yourself to evolve and like allow yourself to grow. That's how you'll come back to that love vibration, that loving awareness that is you.
I love that. And then where can we find more of you? Where can we find you on Instagram? The link for your Kickstarter is in the show notes, but where can we find you on the gram or wherever we're
Yeah, it's at Jaya Chankar is my Instagram, and the same would be for Facebook. Those are the easiest ways to find me and find our music videos and everything else that's happening.
Yeah, and we have our joint account for Instagram. We're gonna create that Facebook one like today, but we've got Chand_Grayson. That's our Instagram. My Instagram is A Graceful Sun, and we do like our little individual like song things on there, and then we come together and we unite as Chand and Grayson. Chand and Grayson.
Yeah. Taking over the world. Well, I appreciate the two of you so much, like so much. And your Gobinde Makande, like I said, it's a non-negotiable like morning meditation mantra that I listen to when I'm getting ready, and I'm part of those many views that you guys have on Spotify. So again, if you go listen to the song on Spotify as well, guys, because it is just, I had a friend over last night. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm interviewing my friends tomorrow and I got to play you their song. And she's in the, we met at Festival World, like it's my other life, and she was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And I was like, I know, I'm obsessed. That's why I'm having them on my podcast. So I just appreciate the two of you so much for doing the work and for answering the call and being in your Dharma. And like I said, like I'm going to be like the biggest fan that's going to continue to watch this evolution of the two of you, and to see both of you just like really step up and really show up, and how you're answering the call. And I just feel so blessed that I got to connect with you and meet you at Satnam Fest back in the spring. And, like I said, I've just been keeping my eyes out on the two of you, and I'm just so excited and so grateful that you're sharing this medicine, because the world needs it. And it just, everyone I share it to, just they feel something. And so I definitely feel like you're onto something. And it's just like I'm just excited to watch. And I'm going to be like Amy Poehler in Mean Girls, like with the video camera, just like so excited.
We love that. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. So we're like holding each other's hand over here. It really means so much to us. Like it's just infinite blessings and so much gratitude for that, because it's really felt. It's really felt.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. Go check them out. Go support their Kickstarter, because like I said, this music is going to be the medicine that your soul's been really calling in. So thank you to the two of you again, and I'm excited to be sharing updates too with them all and all the things. And we appreciate you. And this is the time for us to really unleash our medicine and to really allow the music to speak. And this is what's happening. So we thank you and we love you all, and go check it out, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Sana.